Before we actually plug into virtual reality, we should talk about how the Rift looks, because Oculus has some excellent design work here. Before you even open it, all the parts come in a black carrying case with a magnetic top. I'm not sure how durable it is, but it has a great texture. And the actual hardware looks even better. The Rift doesn't look like a gaming device or an old sci-fi movie prop. It looks classy. For a big face mask, anyway. The most important part here is the headset, but there's also a tracking camera, plus an Xbox One controller that you'll use for most of the games. The last thing is a little remote that you can use for very simple games or for controlling video. Oculus has its own app with a game catalog, which you can use either inside or outside VR. The Oculus Rift is launching with 30 games, which cost anywhere from $5 to $60. The cheapest ones are mostly ported over from the Gear VR, and playing them on the Rift has mixed results.
This game is dead secret, and it's a point-and-click adventure game that I actually really liked on Gear VR also. It's kind of a case where the Gear VR is actually better than the Oculus Rift for it, because the whole point of this game is that you're supposed to be able to turn 360 degrees and look at whatever you need to, but here that would get me tangled up in this cord really horribly. So instead, you can press a button and you'll sort of blink around. It's done, the sort of blinking motion is there to cut down on motion sickness, and it does actually work pretty well. It just doesn't feel quite as good. This is also a game I really like to play with the remote because the whole idea is that it's very, very simple. You're supposed to use sort of the equivalent of a mouse in VR, so a full game controller just sort of seems weird. So this is exactly why they included the remote.
One of the most fun, obvious things to do in the Rift is pretend your chair is some kind of cockpit, whether that's a jetpack, a spaceship, or a car on some weird 360-degree racing Mobius strip.
So the really interesting thing about Radial G is that it's a 360-degree track, and you're trying to outrace everyone else while not falling off it occasionally, and trying to find the fastest path. It is a super intense game with super intense techno music, and that's what makes it fun in VR. And no matter how crazy this looks, I actually don't really get motion sickness in it, because it's kind of like driving a car.
Those games are all first person, but there are actually a lot of titles that make you an invisible observer. The Rift's tracking system means you can lean around like you're looking over a tabletop model. It's a smart system, and it's probably the least likely to make you motion sick. The camera isn't moving until you move your physical body. I've wondered for a while how long I'd be able to stay in the Oculus Rift at a time, and it's actually pretty long. If I adjust the headset too tight, I'll get a headache, and an elephant in the room here is that you could play a lot of these games just as easily on a normal PC or console screen, even if it wouldn't feel the same. There's nothing stopping you from getting up and moving around in the headset. I can take a few steps to either side and still have it track me. But Oculus's launch lineup is a lot of games that you'll want to sit in a chair and play. They don't take advantage of the thing I like most about VR, the fact that it can put your body into an experience. Especially when I don't have an avatar, I start feeling like a disembodied brain hooked up to an Xbox controller. Of course, virtual reality isn't just about video games. Oculus has photo and video apps, so you can see 360-degree movies and pictures. You can also watch 2D video, like Twitch streams or anything stored on your hard drive, in a virtual movie theater. It's got a few interactive animated shorts like Lost and Henry. But for now, that's about all. Oculus has put a lot of non-gaming apps on the Gear VR, and it makes sense that we could see things like Netflix come out to the Rift after launch. And everything will change later this year when the Oculus Touch controllers are released. Touch lets you do things like sculpt with your hands, realistically grab and throw things, and play action games that involve real physical action. At its best, the Oculus Rift lets you have new experiences that would be totally impossible outside virtual reality. Right now, it's mostly adding an extra dimension to more familiar ones. But that extra dimension is still worth seeing, especially with the games Oculus has lined up. The Rift isn't nearly as cool as it might be in 6 months, but that doesn't mean it won't blow your mind just a little.